love this place!
Let me paint you a picture. Let's go back to the 1980s. Madonna, you remember her, don't you? She was on top of the world. Back then, she was fresh, exciting, absolutely dominating pop culture, and almost universally loved, too. Fast forward to today, and, well, modern-day Madonna seems to be trying just a little bit too hard. Clueless, cringy, overdone, and somehow completely out of touch with what people actually want. And that, my friends, is also D&D 2024, a brand that doesn't realize that its best days are well behind it, flailing desperately to stay relevant while people politely nod and look elsewhere. And where are they looking? Well, sure, there's always Pathfinder, though it's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and as we know, Paizo is just as terrible a company as Wizards of the Coast. There's also Money Matt Colville's $4 million RPG train wreck, Draw Steel, which we won't be seeing for quite a while anyway. There's solid OSR retro clone games like Dragon Slayer from our friend, the great Greg Gillespie, and OSR adjacent games like Castles and Crusades from Trollord Games. And then there's Shadowdark. And people aren't just looking at it, they're downright gawking. Because if D&D 2024 is Madonna in 2024, then I suppose that makes Kelsey Dione, the author of Shadowdark, someone like Sabrina Carpenter. If the numbers aren't quite comparable, culturally speaking, she's the one selling out stadiums while Wizards of the Coast stumbles around in a leotard, wondering why everybody is snickering behind her back. So why is Shadowdark back in the news? Because Kelsey Dionne's Arcane Library actually just launched The Western Reaches, a new setting tailor-made for old-school dungeon delving. It promises to be a world where you're desperately watching your torch, praying that it doesn't go out, leaving you alone in the dark. And the Kickstarter? Well, even though it seems to be just kind of a bit of an amalgamation of information that's already been presented in the game's cursed scroll magazines, it's actually obliterating expectations. Over $1 million in the first day or two. The first Shadowdark Kickstarter surprised everyone, pulling in $1.3 million. And since then, it's only actually gained steam. And why is that? Well, Dionne had an epiphany. One that used to be just common sense, and that is, Republicans buy sneakers too, as the great Michael Jordan once said. Or in this case, tabletop RPGs. You won't find any grand political pronouncements from Arcane Library's social media account. Like Castles and Crusades, they seem to follow a games-first approach. And aside from the lunatics who are actively trying to destroy the fabric of gaming itself, this is really all that anyone wants. Sell me your sneaker, or game in this case. Don't lecture me on my way in or on my way out of the door, and we are good. And if the sneaker, or in this case the game, is good, I will be back to buy more in the future. And when the market leader, Wizards of the Coast's D&D, is full of people who seem to resent their own customer base, it's no wonder players are voting with their wallets in huge numbers. And so how is the actual game? Well, I actually played Shadowdark at VentureCon last year. And you know what? I liked it. One of my friends ran it, and it was a great time. My wife really loved it too. It's a stripped-down version of 5th edition D&D that captures the feel of old-school D&D while keeping things quick and deadly. And hopefully you are choosing deadly and grinder mode in your Shadowdark games, as that seems to be where this game can really separate it from 5e. And Shadowdark hit at just the right time, dropping into the post-OGL fiasco world, when trust in Wizards of the Coast was at an all-time low, and for many of us, has pretty much bottomed out and stayed there. It somehow manages to be nostalgic for both early 5e and classic D&D, which is no small feat. The presentation plays a big part in that. The black and white aesthetic, no color, is very eye-catching. And the art isn't just a copy of BECMI or AD&D, but it feels like it could exist alongside those classic pieces. Now compare that to D&D 2024, a game that doesn't seem to know what it is. Even the name doesn't feel right, does it? Somehow D&D 2024 sounds stilted and off. But they won't call it 6th edition because, let's be real, not much has actually changed. And they'd also never admit that it's just 5.5e because, well, that would give the game away, that this is really all just a blatant money grab. So instead, they've doubled down on the cringy safety tools, sanitized mechanics, and art direction that tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. If Shadowdark is stark, black and white reality, D&D 2024 is a technicolor yawn of food festivals, boss girls, and messaging. The contrast couldn't be clearer. One is the aging pop star still thinking that they run the charts, while the other just walked in, stole the show, and ran off with all the buzz. The reality is, people don't want this bloated, corporate designed Frankenstein game that D&D has become. They want something fresh, fast, and fun. And even if it is a little redundant, well, so be it. In that sense, Shadowdark is the new D&D. It kind of nails that sweet spot for a lot of people. Stripped down 5e mechanics with an OSR soul that brings back actual danger and tension. And meanwhile, Wizards of the Coast is trying to drop their exciting new edition that literally no one was asking for. Just like Madonna putting out a new album in 2025 and putting herself in a thong on the cover. Now, if that were to happen, I'm sure there's some diehard fans that would defend it, but let's be real, everyone else would just be pointing and snickering. So if you're looking for the real next edition of D&D, maybe it's time to look at the game that's actually selling. And if Wizards of the Coast wants to turn their ship around, maybe, just maybe, they should stop insulting their longtime fans. Maybe they should hire people who are actually talented and inventive, rather than just ticking off a DEI checkbox. And start paying attention to where fantasy RPG players are actually putting their money these days. Will you guys take care? I hope you have a great, great rest of your day. Let me know what you think of Shadowdark in the comments below. Till we talk again, peace. Crud Forge makes 2 great games that aren't afraid to poke a little fun at the people who, quite frankly, need a little fun poked at them. First is the quick and hilarious Virtue Signal, the game where you play a social justice warrior trying to attract followers to your cause before the other players can tear you down. Then there's the mammoth Portland Occupied Zone, or POZ. In this strategy game, you play as a complete disaster of a human being, trying to reshape Portland into a slacker Marxist utopia. Bring a few friends and warm up that throwing arm for some Molotov cocktails.